Chair recognizes the senator from Crawford, Senator Schultz, for opening remarks on Senate File 455.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, Senate File 455 is a bill that forbids local government from prohibiting or restricting consumers' option to use natural gas or propane. That would conclude my opening remarks, as there is a strike after conforming amendment.
There is an amendment. The chair calls up Amendment 3100. The chair recognizes the senator from Crawford, Senator Schultz, for opening remarks on Amendment 3100.
Thank you, Mr. President. This conforming amendment refers to changes that were made as subcommittees and committees were held, and different ideas were bandied about. The bill, or the amendment, which will become the bill, does generally the same thing, but in regards to the word regulate, finds a way to prescribe the exceptions, allowing local governments to still continue to do current practices in their due course of action. So I would ask that we could adopt this, move to that file.
Is there discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the chair recognizes the senator from Crawford, Senator Schultz, for final remarks on Amendment 3100.
I would move the amendment.
The senator from Crawford moves the adoption of Amendment 3100 to Senate File 455. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion prevails. Chair recognizes the senator from Crawford, Senator Schultz.
With the acceptance of the conforming Amendment 3100, I would ask that House File 555 be substituted for Senate File 455.
Senator from Crawford, Senator Schultz asks unanimous consent that House File 555 be substituted for Senate File 455. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Senator Schultz, you're in order for any opening remarks on House File 555.
I would be satisfied with the comments that I've made.
There is an amendment. The chair calls up Amendment 3104. The chair recognizes the senator from Story, Senator Kornbach, for opening remarks on Amendment 3104.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President. This amendment deals with the overbroad nature of the language in the bill. The bill would prohibit, I'm looking at line 29, a city shall not adopt, enforce, or otherwise administer an ordinance, motion, resolution, or amendment, or use any other means to restrict, impede, regulate, or prohibit intentionally or effectively any of the following. And then it talks about provision of natural gas and sale of propane. Similar language applies to the county. I appreciate the fact that the House has added some language towards the end of the bill that does provide some exceptions, but this language here is so very broad that I don't believe that it is covered entirely or remediated entirely by the language the House provides. There are a number of activities of city government and county government too, for that matter, that I don't believe are exempted by this language, but are part of the normal regulatory process, the regulatory oversight by city and county government. So, for example, the safety of gas hookups to individual residences or to commercial facilities, the regulation by zoning of the location of gas storage facilities, the digging in the public right-of-way for laying or repairing of gas lines, the conditions of delivery, if propane, for example, being delivered by truck. All of those are concerns which materially affect public safety and are indeed the legitimate territory for local governments to pass amendments and resolutions. I understand that certain things are grandfathered in here by the House language, but basically that language freezes the status quo in place. It does not allow for future developments to be responded to by the local governments. I think it's also important here to clarify, and I believe it is still the intent, that we preserve the ability of local governments to promote alternative energy. We are going to be looking over the decades for other sources of energy. Natural gas, the fracking boom has certainly increased the supply for the time being, but like any fuel dug out of the ground, there is a finite supply. We need to allow cities to prepare for the future. We need to allow cities to respond to environmental concerns, and that is why the other language appears in this amendment to reassure cities and to reinforce their ability to promote alternative energy. I was given to understand that the genesis of this bill came in part from someone's concern that somehow the city of Des Moines might try to abolish or prohibit the sale of natural gas. I think the chances of that are even lower than the negative temperatures that we experienced back in February. That's just not going to happen. Even crazier would be a county board that attempted to prohibit the sale of propane. Again, that's just not going to happen. So I think that this bill here is an attempt to solve a problem that really doesn't exist, if that was the genesis of it. I think that local governments ought to have the ability to regulate in the interest of public safety, and they ought to have the ability to seek new and creative ways to promote alternative energy. And that's what the amendment does. So,
is there discussion on the amendment? The chair recognizes the senator from Crawford, Senator Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I would ask that you resist this amendment. I appreciate the amendment being brought forward, but we have a simple disagreement. I believe that under the word governance, all of the things that the amendment sponsor mentioned that he believes are not covered, I believe they are covered. In regards to, I don't believe the bill in any way restricts the ability of a city to promote alternative energy. I have to admit, I kind of wish it did a little bit because I'm tired of having it shoved down our throats, but that's not really here today. I would like to resist this amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Walls.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senator from Crawford yield?
Senator Schultz, would you yield?
Yes, I would.
Senator, you are in order.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Schultz. So just to be clear, from your view, the amendment proposed by the senator from Story does not conflict with what the bill is currently drafted.
Say that again. It does not conflict with...
So just to recount the comments that you just made on the floor a moment ago, from your perspective.
That I wish it did?
No. From your perspective, the bill is currently drafted does not prevent any of those governance decisions about renewable energy or zoning or what have you.
I don't believe it does.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm good.
Chair recognizes, seeing no further discussion, the chair recognizes the senator from Story, Senator Kornbach, for final remarks on Amendment 3104.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate Senator Schultz clarifying his understanding with regard to the promotion of alternative energy. And with all due respect to you, Senator, and to the body, comments on the floor do not carry the same force of law as words put into the Code of Iowa. Putting into the Code of Iowa that we do respect cities' abilities to promote alternative energy is a stronger guarantee and one that I would like to see there. I also go back to the situation of cities trying to protect public safety, digging in the right-of-way, safe hookups so that we don't have explosions, that we don't have gas leaks. Those are very dangerous situations. This bill would reinforce the ability of cities to deal with those situations to protect the public. So I would move the amendment.
The senator from Story moves the adoption of Amendment 3104. A record roll call vote has been requested. The secretary will open the voting system and receive your vote. Senator Zumbaugh votes no. Senator Carlin votes no. Senator of Scott, Senator Smith votes no. Senator Knoyer votes no. Senator Edler votes no. Senator Brown votes no. Has every senator voted? Every senator has voted. Secretary of Closed Voting System, Secretary Locked Voting System. The Senate will pay attention to the result of the roll call. Those voting no, 27. Those voting aye, 18. The bill or the amendment is defeated. That disposes of all amendments. We're now back on House File 555. Is there further discussion? The chair recognizes the senator from Black Hawk, Senator Giddens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, colleagues of the Senate, this bill is anti-Iowa. It was written by the methane and propane gas industries to protect those industries. And guess how much methane and propane is produced in Iowa every year? None. Zero. Now, guess what energy source Iowa is a national leader in? It's not tough to imagine. It's very visible as we drive across the state. That's wind. And the solar industry is really taking off in Iowa as well. A brand new 127.5 megawatt solar project was just completed in Eliza County in Senator Goodwin's district. New wind and solar projects are on tap across the state. It's very exciting, and it's truly an economic engine for our state. But wind and solar produce electricity, and here in Iowa, we typically heat our buildings, heat our water, and cook with methane and propane gas. So imagine a city here in Iowa that wanted to support Iowa clean energy production, so they wrote an ordinance that new homes would have to be equipped with electric-driven heating systems like geothermal systems, and electric hot water heaters and electric cooking ranges so that those homes would use Iowa-produced clean energy and not use dirty, imported methane and propane gas. That's what this bill would prohibit. It would prohibit a city from taking charge of and controlling its own clean energy future. This bill protects the methane and propane gas industry, an industry that doesn't exist here in Iowa, but one that does pump money right out of Iowa at the same rate it pumps gas into Iowa. And this bill inhibits the growth and demand for our own clean wind and solar electricity. The methane and propane gas industries see what is coming. They know they can't compete with efficient technologies like heat pumps and induction cooking and cheap renewable electricity. This bill ensures that they can keep charging ratepayers to build out uncompetitive infrastructure like pipelines, even when it makes no sense and it's just a subsidy to their out-of-state funders. This bill is a preemptive strike on our communities, taking away yet another tool that they could use locally to chart their own course, to build the future they want for themselves and future generations. And instead, it forces them to continue to use a dirty energy source that ships their money right out of the state. Mr. President, this bill is anti-Iowa. Colleagues of the Senate, I urge you to vote no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Bolcom.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise in opposition to House File 555. Well, it's Monday. We're back. Been in debate a couple hours. It didn't take long to have another bill to take away local control. It's our weekly anti-democracy bill, because that is what local control is about. Local people making local decisions about what's best for the people. More anti-democracy legislation. Autocrats love this bill, Mr. President. Mr. President, energy sources are changing in America. They're changing here in Iowa. How we are going to power our homes and businesses in the future is changing. Technology we have not conceived of yet, and certainly the technology that we have today by way of solar energy, wind, other renewables, battery storage. What next, Mr. President? Are we going to tell cities they have to use asphalt over concrete? Last week, I think it was last week, we struck from the code the mandate that Iowans, cities, counties, others use Iowa coal. Senator Rosenboom spoke about it as a person that lives in southern Iowa where we had coal mining. And that makes sense to me. Iowa coal being burned in Iowa back in the early part of the last century. We also have this thing called an ethanol mandate. Ethanol mandate's about Iowa corn. But why we have a mandate on an imported energy supply like natural gas and methane, as Senator Giddens just spoke about, why we have a mandate to burn fuels that are created in other states, I don't understand. This bill reminds me of the defund the police bill we had a few weeks ago, a solution seeking a problem that does not exist. I'm for allowing local communities to determine our energy future. And I'm for that because the Republicans in this legislature for the last 5 years have an absolutely lousy track record on energy and preparing for our energy future. It's all retrograde. That's what this bill is. It's looking backwards instead of forwards. I hope we're not going to see this. I hate to even suggest this, Mr. President, but I can't believe we haven't seen a bill yet banning electric cars. I don't want to give anybody any ideas, Mr. President, but it is kind of astonishing we haven't seen that bill yet. So finally, if we're going to do absolutely nothing to address a clean energy future, Mr. President, let's at least get out of the way. I encourage a no vote on House File 555.
Chair recognizes the senator from Hancock, Senator Guth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to make correction to the comments that we just heard about there not being any methane produced in the state of Iowa. According to the American Biogas Council, Iowa ranks number 8 among U.S. states for methane production potential from biogas sources. Currently has 63 operational biogas systems. Thank you, Mr. President.
Seeing no further discussion, the chair recognizes the senator from Crawford, Senator Schultz, for final remarks on House File 555.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I did appreciate hearing all that. We're going to have to agree to disagree on this one. My perspective is different. I appreciate what I heard. A week ago, was it? We ran the big tech censorship because we want to have the free exchange of ideas. This bill is about having the free opportunity to choose what to heat your home with. See, this doesn't eliminate local control because, Mr. President, the family is the most local level of government you can have. And there are people in the metro, and this is happening nationwide. That's why this bill is showing up in different states, who are telling the level of government beneath them, the family, that you can't use any other form of energy. You have to use the one we want. Now I'd like to move to a story of 3 light bulbs, if I could. We were getting along just fine with incandescents. Now, I'm not saying I wish we had incandescents anymore. They used more energy. They were hot. They actually, an incandescent light bulb in the crawl space I think I was 3 years old when I lived in that house. It actually burnt the house down because they were using straw bales to insulate the foundation. They had a light bulb in there because the heat would keep the pipes going. Started the straw on fire. I mean, I'm glad we don't have them anymore, but we were going along fine. We were lighting our world, and people were figuring it out. The government didn't like all of the energy that incandescents used in floodlights, in the large globe machine shed lights, in the street lights on our streets. So they said, by golly, we got to make people do something different. So they insisted that we use fluorescents, the little curlicues. They had to use mercury in them, so we got a toxic substance. They didn't just break into small pieces, they turned into powder, if you remember right. This is government in action, just saying this is what we want you to use. It actually got so bad that the free market actually came back and said, man, you guys really hate fluorescence. I bet they started working on LEDs. We now have the greatest technology here. So if you want to say that government led us to LEDs, I guess you could, but in a way that only government seems to be able to do it, which is to get involved, make it so miserable that somebody in the free market says, I bet I could make a buck doing it better than that. And now we have the LED industry. That's what we've got going on right now. The comment was made, and this isn't a gotcha, but that energy sources are changing. Well, Mr. President, yeah, they slowly are, but obviously they're not changing fast enough because now large metros are coming in saying, you're not doing it the way we want you to do it, so we're going to make you do it our way. So now states are coming back saying, folks, leave those families alone. Some of them, you're raising the cost of housing, which is a crisis in the state. So I would fully expect if we did nothing, levels of government would make things so bad that somebody would actually come up with a way to make it better using the free market. But I don't dislike Iowans that much. I don't want them to have to go through that through government mandates. I'd like to protect them from that. The free market will come up with better options. Ladies and gentlemen, it was talked about how renewable is a competitive industry. Competitive industries do not have their competition eliminated by ordinance, by resolution, by regulation. You don't need to do that if you have a competitive industry. You need a better business model. With that, Mr. President, I would move House File 555.
The senator from Crawford moves that House File 555 be read for the last time and placed on its passage. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion prevails. Secretary will read.
House File 555, a bill for enacting Bernard Counties and cities from regulating sale of natural gas propane being enacted by the General Assembly State of Iowa.
The senator from Crawford moves that the reading thus far be considered the last reading of the bill. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion prevails. Is title agreed to? Yes. Title is agreed to. The question now is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of the passage of House File 555 will vote aye. Those opposed vote no. Secretary will open the voting system and receive your vote. Senator Zumbaugh votes no. Senator Zumbaugh votes aye. Senator Rosenboom votes aye. Senator Edler votes aye. Senator Bolton votes no. Senator Carlin votes aye. Has every senator voted? Every senator has voted. The secretary will close the voting system. Secretary will lock the voting system and record your votes. Senate will pay attention to the result of the roll call. Those voting aye, 29. Those voting no, 16. The bill having received the constitutional majority is declared to have passed the Senate and the title was agreed to.